Welcome back to Another Thing. I'm Larry Menti to talk more about the stress on students these days because of too much homework, not enough free time, too much testing, is Denise Wegeman, the licensed clinical social worker. And thank you, Denise, for joining us again.
Thank you, Larry.
I started the conversation by talking about too much homework, not enough free time, too much testing. Is that the stress on students these days? Does that sum it up?
Well, I think you hit it on the head, Larry. I think kids are under too much pressure, and homework and testing really play into it. It used to be that I would see kids for anxiety, it would be in the latter teen years, mostly when they hit high school. And now it's really going down the line that kids are starting to come in with anxiety issues and not being able to handle stress at a much younger age. And I think it's due to all the demands from homework and testing that are on them at this time.
When did this start? Because as I was talking to the superintendent just a moment ago, I said there was a few years ago, a couple of decades ago, we were concerned that we weren't keeping up with the rest of the world. And then there was more testing, there was no child left behind. There seemed to be more homework. Have you seen a rise in anxiety during that time?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think there's more demands on the children, and I think what's really hard is they don't get enough unstructured free time. There's no downtime. And I think there was just an article in the New York Times, and Denise Pope had a really great twist on it, that she said that there's not enough of playtime, downtime, and free time for kids. I'm seeing kids that are overstressed and have so much to manage that it becomes a full-time job. They don't know how to manage everything, and I'm seeing issues of stress. We're seeing kids with more migraines. We're seeing kids that can't sleep. We're seeing kids that are putting off fun activities that should be in the normal social progression for them at this point, that they're putting off because they feel the demands of education are just driving their life right at this point.
And I saw research about kids going to the hospital, kids having to be treated for the long term for psychological problems because of the stress they're feeling.
Yes. I'm actually on the board of the Society of Prevention Teen Suicide, and we're seeing a large increase. One of our at-risk groups are not only kids that are bullied, but kids that are high achievers. They're not able to handle the stress, and because the kids are having so much demands put on them, they're having anxiety and depression, and they're being hospitalized, and they're more risk for suicide.
Does this spill over to the rest of their lives? Are they taught to be stressed?
Well, it's kind of a machine that takes on a life of its own. Think of yourself, you're working, and if you don't have adequate downtime, if you don't have times to decompress, how effective are you going to be at work? It's the same thing with a child or a teenager. Their brains are still developing. They need time to socialize. They need time with their friends. They need time to have activities. They need time to find out what their passion is in life. And so if all they're doing is homework, 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 and preparing for test, 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 you're not going to have a well-balanced individual. So we really need to kind of find what the perfect balance is. And I think parents really have to be proactive in understanding that. I think the recommendation from the education departments and PTA associations is that 10 minutes of homework per night starting in first grade. They say you shouldn't have any in kindergarten. Well, we know now that kindergartners even get homework when they come home. But kids, we know by the time they are in 12th grade, they have more than 120 minutes of homework. So think about that. If you're trying to manage being in school all day, or if that's your job, and then you come home and you still have all projects and things, and now kids are in gifted and talented programs and AP testing, again, they're having more demands on their life. And then trying to balance that. Maybe they have a job, maybe they are in a sport or an activity. It's a lot to balance for a teenager.
Right, and there are unintended consequences, health consequences to all this. The backpacks have become huge, and you've got back problem. And these are some serious problems that last an entire lifetime. Lack of sleep is another problem.
Well, sleep is a big thing. I think teenagers need a lot of sleep. And again, if they're staying up late to complete assignments, then they have to get up early to go to school. The lack of sleep is one of the #1 factors that make you a suicide risk. So you have the lack of sleep, then the anxiety, and then the stomach issues, the migraines. And then if they are hospitalized, we're not teaching our children how to handle stress, and then that can turn into later implications as an adult with mental health issues.
And everything is supposed to be about learning. I would imagine all of that is counterproductive to learning.
Well, it is, because again, they start to burn out. And when you have kids starting to burn out when they're younger, what is it going to be like for them in the future? They're not learning how to get a healthy balance in their life to have a productive life.
It's interesting to me that you would think the parents would want testing, the parents would want their child to exceed, but it seems much of the pushback comes from parents who are watching their children suffer.
I think parents want the best for their children. Any parent would. But I think the hard part is they want them to be successful. And there's so much pressure in society for your kids to be the best at everything. When you think about individuals, just the kids in sports, it used to be that you had a soccer season, but now you have travel soccer and elite soccer. And if you don't do that, you're not going to excel. But is your child ever going to be that professional? And then you look at the academic end. If they really start struggling, are they going to get ahead? And so the parents are demanding gifted and talented programs, AP classes, but to what extent? Are you losing your child?
No, it's a great point. It's even the after-school activities aren't fun anymore because there's pressure to excel. Yeah, I get it.
I have children that come into my therapy practice and they'll say, oh, what day is it? What do I have to do? And they're so overwhelmed even by the things that should be fun for them because it becomes more of a job. And some of them are burning out, and some of those protective factors, like the sports, like the activities, they can't manage. And so sometimes they do turn to other things to kind of help them, like drug addiction and alcohol, to try to cope with things.
Any concern that as we push back on testing, if we do, and pull back on the homework, if we do, and create more free time, that we would fall behind the rest of the world again, that the learning would suffer?
You know, that's a great question, but I go back to when I was growing up and when you were growing up, Larry, we didn't have a lot of the opportunities that a lot of these kids have. And we ended up being successful. There's a lot of successful people. I don't think that we are looking to create individuals that are just driven by work. We want to have a well-balanced individual. We want to have one that's philanthropic, that wants to look at their community and their family. They want to find things that they're good at. But when they're kind of pigeonholed to just do one thing, it makes them burn out, it makes them stressed, and it doesn't set them up for success. There's a lot of 20-some-year-olds that are kind of floundering because they've been driven for so long, and then you take that pressure away, they don't know how to interact in the real world, to have relationships, to have conversations.
So learning is more than test taking, is what you're saying.
It really is, absolutely.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you coming
Larry.
back again. Denise Wegeman, a licensed clinical social worker, talking about the stress on kids these days. When we come back.
You'd think Americans who are born and raised in this country would know the answers to the so-called U.S. citizenship test.